Just when you thought NC State men's basketball would not be participating in March Madness this year, head coach Kevin Keatts has been fired.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to this special live edition here on Sunday. The first of two episodes. We're going to do this one now because it's an emergency podcast. We'll also have a post-game podcast after the ladies face Duke in the ACC title game. Very excited for that one in about an hour. So we'll get you, sped up for that game. We'll keep you occupied from now until then. Some news happened this morning, Kenton, and actually caught the two of us completely off guard. We were both at church. I'm sitting there in the church service, and my phone starts buzzing. It buzzed once, buzzed twice, buzzed three times. I'm like, okay, that doesn't usually happen this time of morning. Kept buzzing. I'm like, nope, something just happened. The pastor gets a little bit louder. I'm like, okay, no, something definitely just happened. I take a little peek, which I'm not supposed to be doing in a church service. Sorry. Peek. Kevin Keatts has been relieved of his duties. He dropped a graphic, which is kind of funny. I'll read that in just a second. But Kenton, give me your gut reaction. Kevin Keatts has been fired as head coach of the NC State Wolfpack.
Well, nobody can say Boo Corrigan isn't making decisive and bold moves anymore.
Yep.
Because this is a massive buyout to eat. Like this, let's not make any bones about that. This is not some ho-hum, like, oh yeah, you got to pay a little bit of money here and there. It happens. No. This is a massive buyout. But this was a move that we all felt like should happen or needed to. I don't know anybody that wasn't either in the camp of should or needed. The people who said should were like, if the money wasn't involved, you kind of should get rid of them. It would be a good thing. The people who said needed to were like, payout be damned. Get him away from this program. Well, everybody is now seeing what folks wanted or thought should have happened. So now it's the coaching search begins, and that's pretty much what I'm looking at here. Because honestly, I'm one of those people. The best day of your life is today, and the next best day is tomorrow. So what we can do today, start the coaching search. That's it. That's where I am with this thing at this point.
We've kind of talked about some surrounding factors to a decision like this in these last couple weeks. Some of the comments that Coach Keatts has had in the post-game pressers basically alluding to the fact the NIL support was not there this year. And, if he had deeper pockets, he could get better players. And we talked about the impact of saying things like that when the season is going as poorly as it is. You can't really expect more people to jump on board and want to provide additional support if it wasn't there last year. And saying comments like that, it really starts to push people in the opposite direction. And I would love to know, we'll probably never get full clarity, but I would love to know the jump-off point for Boo Corrigan. I would love to know when it came over this timeline, because like we've said on here multiple times, we were told on good authority to not expect a coaching move this offseason. Just won the ACC title last year, just went to the Final Four. To fire a coach in just a year's time, it's a little bit crazy. But for NC State to buck up and do it now, they were certainly rubbed very wrong at some point in the last, I'd probably say like a month or maybe a couple weeks. Something has shown them the light, so to speak, that you cannot continue down the same road and expect different results. So although the decision, I guess, today was unexpected, I do think it is the correct decision. I do think if you want to revamp NC State, if you want to get them back on the track where they're consistently competing for ACC titles or consistently trying to get to the second weekend of March Madness or, further on down the road, Keatts was just not going to be the guy. And we know he did it last year, but when you look at the entirety of the body of work, it really looks like a fluke. It does. The team was 17-14 before going on that run. And, this year you move even further backwards in the wrong direction. I mean, honestly, we've talked about missing the ACC tournament. This is probably, all things considered, the worst season in school history. When you factor in everything, missing the ACC tournament, being in the bottom three of a new conference, which is 18 teams, coming off of what you did last year, it's embarrassing. And I'd have to imagine the shock factor of performing so poorly it pushed Boo Corrigan over the edge. So, Kenton, like you said there, for all the people that have been critical of Boo Corrigan sitting on his hands and not putting out statements on social media, not being as loud about, all things NC State as Debbie Yao was, here you go. He's making the move now. And I think to capitalize on the timing of this, which is another key piece of this, it's a move in the right direction.
There were only 3 teams this year that did not win a single away game all year in the ACC. NC State, Boston College, and Miami. That's it.
And you just lost to Miami.
You lost to Miami on the road to end off this season. And there's another thing that I want to be very, very clear about here. When you talk about, you and Grayson said that there was no way that he'd get fired. Well, yes, no way, given that he had a subpar to bad season.
No one saw this coming.
This is a little bit unprecedented in terms of how far you fell in 1 year's time. And, you look at this situation and you say to yourself, well, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of you're getting a new coach. But I look at this season and still say, what a waste, because I don't think that last year was a fluke necessarily. I think that it was an adjustment in game plan due to some injuries that had occurred and due to some other things that had happened. There was an adjustment in game plan, and the adjustment worked out in a massive way. And it's something that we just did not see this year. Our starting lineup for most of the tournament runs included Mo Diarra and DJ Burns. Before the tournament, that was not the case. Mo Diarra was not a full-time starter last year. When he got inserted into the lineup, we all know the legend of Ramadan Mo and him absolutely cleaning the boards and whatnot, but he was not a full-time starter throughout last year. And this year we come back and see, hey, there was no priority on getting a glass cleaning big. There was no priority put on, hey, this is something that needs to happen. I get it. We missed out on some big-time guards that, I was told we're right in play for, and we missed out, sure. But the big portion of it was something that I also wanted to see that we just didn't meaningfully come close to addressing. So, for me, I look at this situation and I say, and that's another thing I want to talk about really quickly. Everybody litigating about whether or not last season was luck or whether or not it was just great adjustment, whether or not it was the players playing out of their mind. Who gives a damn? Who gives a damn? If I end up marrying Megan Thee Stallion because I hit the Powerball and all of a sudden, like I'm well above the tax bracket that most of the men trying to date her in, or if she just thinks I'm that guy, guess what? Either way, Miss Megan Pete is not my old lady. That's just how that works out. I don't give a damn how it happened or why it happened. It did happen. And what we do know is off of that happening, we had one of the worst seasons in NC State basketball history. Own that, live with that, move on from there. But stop all this whole humming and back and forth and about what did it mean? And is it luck? Is it skill? Or who cares? It happened.
I do think that the decision to make this move now, it revolves a lot around having standards for the program. And that's been a conversation for, I guess, really the entirety of Keatts' tenure. You had the NCAA cloud over the program post-Gottfried in the first couple of years of Keatts. And getting out of that, people just wanted to see consistent success. People want to see NC State get to the tournament, pretty much each and every year. That should be the goal every single year, especially the storied history that this program did have that got kind of lost along the way in the early 2000s up until somewhat recently. State fans just want NC State to be competitive. We don't want to have to wait for the one-off or make a tournament once and have to sit for 3 years and, oh, great, we're back on the bubble. Are we ever going to do anything ever again? We can't live for the one-off. This program has to have standards. And I think firing Keatts directly after winning the ACC title and going to the Final Four, this is a statement of we have to have standards. You can't have the worst program or the worst season in program history after what you just accomplished. All of the momentum that you should be having right now. Punt. The 67-yard punt downfield, and it was coffin cornered, a perfect punt. That's how brutal the situation is. Okay, to Keatts' credit, and I'll read some of his statement here, he's done a lot of talking about NIL. The NIL wasn't where it should be for the program. Now, that's not an excuse for the way the season panned out, but the NIL did not match where the standards should be for this program. And I've seen a couple people here in the comments, well, now's your time. If you want to talk about NIL, now is the time to get involved, because the new coach, whoever it may be, we'll talk about that also, is going to need more help than you could possibly imagine. $2 million has been the number floating around with what NC State had to work with this year. It ain't going to cut it. You will never compete outside of, a magical run with just $2 million, especially in the ACC. So, the NIL is a big portion of this, but for me, the overarching statement made by Boo Corrigan making this move right now is standards. NC State is making the conscious decision to be competitive, not just be competitive, but stay competitive. They see what Duke and Carolina have done down the street. They're not the Duke and Carolina. Well, maybe Duke is, but those two are not the powers, the superpowers that they used to be. This is a time that NC State needs to take advantage of that. Hubert Davis, I'll go ahead and take my shots now. Hubert Davis is kind of fumbling around over there in Chapel Hill. That's when NC State needs to strike. We've waited forever to try and strike back because freaking Roy Williams owned us. He owned us. Now Roy Williams is gone. Hubert Davis is fumbling around. That's when NC State needs to strike. You went to the Final Four last year. You won the ACC title. That's the momentum we've been craving for 40-plus years. It had to be now. It had to be now. And so I want to give a lot of credit to Boo Corrigan, because it's not an easy decision. But Keatts just won himself a ton of money in extensions and bonuses, and to wipe all that out in a calendar year, let's put in your cojones on the table. Boo Corrigan said, nope, we will have standards. I'm tired of sitting around waiting. Standards will be taken care of right now. So I'm going to read you a quick ad break, and then we'll get into some further thoughts. I'm rolling right now. I'm flustered. I'm going to read you a quick ad here. We'll get into some further implications of this decision, the timing of this decision, and what NC State needs to do moving forward here after this, I guess, the dust clears of this decision. Let me pull up my ads. Ooh, I am rolling. Sunday church service. Got me fired up. Our first Sunday live ad read of the day is FanDuel. Folks, March Madness is knocking at your door. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 back in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 back, $200 in extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who will be cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it super easy to back them with spreads, totals, game props, and more. With tournament games happening almost every day here in just about a week's time, there's always something exciting to bet on. So head on over to FanDuel.com and get the college hoops action all tournament long only on FanDuel. All right, middle portion of our first Sunday live show. Again, this is an emergency podcast. Coach Kevin Keatts has been fired from NC State basketball. We'll have a post-game podcast. The NC State women's basketball team is in the ACC championship against Duke in roughly 45 minutes, a 1:30 tip in Greensboro. But Kenton, Coach Keatts has been relieved of his duties. I want to talk about the timing of this decision. Obviously, NC State just finished the regular season yesterday on Saturday with a road loss to what was the worst team in the ACC for the entire year, the Miami Hurricanes. An embarrassing loss like that one. And then to announce the coaching change less than 24 hours later. Is NC State doing the right thing by getting ahead of the curve right now?
Yes, absolutely. We've seen how it decimates teams when you wait too long to make these types of decisions, or when coaches decide to leave too late. Look at, the team that we lost to, that's a team that you absolutely cannot lose to in Miami. How did their season go and why? Larinaga packed it up mid-season. He said, hey, I'm done here. I ain't got nothing left. And boom, you go from there. How did Virginia do this season? A once very proud, a Final Four run, national championship run type of team. How did they do when Bennett said, hey, I'm done right before the season? The timing of this could not be better. As soon as it's like, hey, we can't do this no more. Do not meander. Do not play around. Do not sit and think and ponder and pontificate and to be or not to be. Get rid of that coach. And that's what NC State did in this moment. They saw, hey, Boot Corrigan and company saw this is not going to get better. He is doubling and tripling down on a system that has failed. This is just not going to be it. And one quick thing, because I know that you're about to actually, you know what? No, I'll let you read the statement first in terms of the separation statement from Keatts. But there is something in there that's very interesting. But again, this is the best time to do it. Don't wait around. Don't create a situation where guys are up in limbo last minute or whatever the case may be. No. Let it be known as early as possible, as soon as possible. This is what it is. We're getting our coaching search started today. Shop is open today. We're looking.
Yeah, and when I say surprised by this decision, I do mean surprised in a good way, because to Kenton's point, if you're going to do it as soon as you know that you're going to do it. Waste no more time, because in a coaching search, every day can be valuable, especially when you have to go up against the bigger dogs. Like in Indiana, for example, they're going to be in the middle of a coaching search because Mike Woodson was announced that he won't be back. But I think the timing for NC State is really nice, because there's not a ton of major programs that have announced they're looking forward to a change here these next couple weeks, especially within the ACC. Syracuse, we had Jackson Holzer on the show. He was talking about potentially replacing Autry up there. He's coming back. Steve Forbes for Wake Forest, he will be back. So you kind of have a leg up in this process, at least in my mind. If NC State wants to get aggressive, they have picked the right time to do so. I do want to read some of Keatts' statement here. I think this statement was like perfect Keatts, because it was serious, it was heartfelt, and then he finished by saying, "I'm officially entering the portal." That's his personality, and that is something I've always appreciated about Coach Keatts. He seems to be a player's coach. The players always seem to like him, and he almost treated them, I mean, definitely as a coach, but also as like a father figure and a friend. And so I think he had a good personality that shined through here. However, there are a couple comments. We've talked a lot about NIL, and he kind of slid one sneakily in here. I'll get to it here. He says, quote, "I'm extremely proud of what we accomplished during my time here. Prior to my first season, the NCAA informed us that we were being investigated due to the actions of the prior staff. We were able to guide the program through 5 years of investigations and penalties, came out on the other side with back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, and for the first time in 37 and 40 years, an ACC championship and a trip to the Final Four. As we enter," pay attention, folks, "as we enter this new era of college sports, I wholeheartedly believe that I am leaving the program in a better position to succeed than when I started. That, and the basketball program will continue to thrive when supported to the level necessary to compete," unquote. And then again, he did finish by saying, "I'm officially entering the portal." I love that. A lot of people are rubbed the wrong way by that. Don't be. It's not that deep. I think it's pretty funny. Kent, in the comments here, "This program will succeed when supported to the level necessary to compete." How did that read to you?
You know, I read it as he felt like this program was lacking the support necessary to succeed. But this is the reason that I wanted to save this bit of information until after you read that. NC State finished 16th of 18 teams in the ACC. Now you're telling me that you had a smaller budget than each and every one of these teams in front of you? You had a smaller budget than Cal, than Syracuse, than Virginia Tech, than Notre Dame, than Virginia, than Pitt, than Florida State, than Georgia Tech, than Stanford, than the Dirty Foot Club, than Wake Forest, than SMU, than Louisville, than Clemson, than Duke. You had a lower budget than each and every one of those schools? Because if so, and here's the thing, if somebody can show me the data that says you were not comparable, you were not, if you are in the same stratosphere as them, I can hear you. We can have that conversation. If it is a situation where you are in the same stratosphere, if we're spending 2 and everybody else is spending 10, hey, I ain't mad at you. I was unaware. I apologize for my outburst. I was wrong. However, I highly doubt that we are at 2 and everybody else is exponentially ahead of that. I have a ton of suspicions about such a thing. I have a ton of suspicion that Wake Forest has more people giving more money than NC State. I have a ton of suspicion about that. I have a ton of suspicion that you're going to sit up here and tell me Pitt men's basketball with Coach Capel, who's also on the outs. People saying, hey, he's not the guy. He's not going to get it done. That team is doing exponentially better than you in terms of NIL. And don't even get me started on the likes of a Virginia Tech and telling me, hey, they're that much better than you because they're spending so much more than you. With all due respect to the folks up in Blacksburg, I've never heard that's a big money spot. And everybody who went to Virginia Tech is a donor. I've never heard that. So again, you can keep talking to me about, oh, we don't have what it takes to compete. Show me the data. Show me the data that everybody is spending over $2 million and well over $2 million. If everybody's at $4 million plus, hey, Keatts, my bad. I'll acknowledge I was very wrong and everybody's. But if it's not the case, which I highly suspect, it is a you problem. It is a you could not get it done, and that's okay. Just acknowledge my system does not work here. I'm going to go somewhere where it does. Because there are plenty of places where it will.
Right.
This just ain't the place.
Yeah, and furthering Kenton's point there, we were not – the NIL that we put out for the season, it was not 16th in the ACC bad. I can never be convinced of that. You cannot convince me that we should have outperformed or that we shouldn't have outperformed Cal this year. Cal, a new team coming into the ACC, did much better than NC State did. Well, I shouldn't say much, but they did better than NC State did. Notre Dame, the same way. What storied history in basketball does Notre Dame really have? I mean, they were good in around like the 2015 years. Pat Connaughton was a hooper. But, I mean, they haven't had a whole lot to show for it recently. They're in the early stages of Shrewsbury up in South Bend. Notre Dame outperform NC State. Again, you just lost to Miami. I don't think we should spend too much more time on that, but you lost to Miami. Larinaga packed his bags early and saw where this train was headed. NC State lost to that team to finish the regular season. It's about standards. The NIL, you can blame the NIL because I think there is some truth to that, but the NIL is not the reason you were as bad as you were this year. And so I want to transition that. I've also seen some comments in here, like I had mentioned, for everyone that has said, I won't support Coach Keatts. I won't support this program until I see consistent success. If you were ever on the fence, now is your chance. The new coach, whoever it will be, is going to need as much support as we can possibly give them. And right now, it's just a mystery human. We don't know who it will be. We'll discuss some options here in just a couple seconds here, but the NIL for NC State, it's going to have to take a jump. Whether it worked for Keatts or didn't work for Keatts, the level was still too low for where NC State should be. And so it's going to take a full conceded effort by all of us. If you want to see more consistent success, you can help provide, the means to do so. The X's and O's and the Larrys and Joes will still have to be there, but the fan support is going to have to rally around this program right now. A lot of people have been out on Keatts for quite some time. I'll say that as well. I'm talking like year 2 and year 3 of his tenure. He just spent 8 years with us. People have been out for quite some time. So if that's you and you've been waiting for a day like this one, the day has arrived. You can now help make an impact on how well NC State can go into the portal. Because keep in mind, we've kind of hinted that they're going to have to reconstruct this roster, probably even more so now. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But I'd have to imagine you also, let's see, you had 7 seniors moving on. Marcus Hill said he'll be back, but I mean, I wouldn't count your chickens quite yet on that one either. You look at the freshman, Trey Parker, who didn't play against Miami due to personal reasons. I don't want to read into that, but it could be related. Paul McNeil, freshman. Who knows? With the portal, you cannot really count on any single player to be a lock for next season. So this program, the administration, Boo Corrigan, it's going to have to be all hands on deck, and that includes the fan base. So I guess this is my sales pitch to donate to Wolfpack if you have the means to do so. This school, this administration, it's going to be a brand new era, and they have to hit the ground running, which is why we talked about the timing. We currently have a little bit of a leg up on all the other programs that are going to have to rotate on the coaching carousel here in the next couple weeks. NC State doing this now, it gives them the opportunity to build some momentum and then go out and get their guy. So I'm going to read another quick ad read. Mal actually told me in the comments the women's game starts at 1, not 1:30. Guess my coffee's a little bit too strong this morning. So I'm going to read an ad. We'll talk some potential replacements, and then we'll get you out of here so we can watch the game in Greensboro. Our second ad read of our first Sunday live show is, if I can find it, Nissan. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From the top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power to push their team forward. This week's Armada clear-cut Team of the Week are the Houston Cougars. I would like to replace this with the NC State women's basketball team, but we'll do that later on today. Since joining the Big 12 last season, the Cougars have gone a combined 33-4 in conference games, winning the regular season by multiple games both years. There's no team in college basketball that more capably embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second straight year, and that's why it's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road with confidence, just like you can do in the all-new Nissan Armada. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, last couple minutes here of our first live pregame, I guess you could say, pregame show here on Sunday. To reiterate, NC State has made the decision to fire head coach Kevin Keatts, relieving him of his duties 1 year after winning the ACC title and going to the Final Four. Kenton, I want to float a couple names out here for potential replacements because we just said NC State is taking advantage of the moment, getting ahead of the curve, making this decision now and starting to rally the troops. I've seen Will Wade a ton, and Will Wade is a name to know. Obviously, before Keatts was hired, Will Wade was in the mix to potentially come here after Godfrey the first time, ended up getting hired by LSU. Now, when he was down at LSU, he was doing some things ahead of schedule in terms of NIL and the transfer portal, little illegal activities, under the table, hush, hush, take some 40 grand to come play for my school activity. He got popped for it. He was fired. LSU was kind of under the same black cloud that NC State was. Will Wade has now been at McNeese State for, I believe, the last 3 years, and he has built them into a mid-major empire. I believe McNeese State is going to compete for their conference title either today or very soon after today because they've been a wagon down there in Louisiana. Will Wade is probably the top name to know, being that he was linked to NC State prior. NC State is going to be, I guess, an attractive spot. I think that's an interesting conversation as well as how attractive of a spot is NC State. But Will Wade is probably the top name to know. A couple other ones I've seen, Ben McCollum. He's the head coach of Drake right now. Kind of the same situation. Well, not exactly same, but he has built Drake into a mid-major empire. He's a newer coach for Drake. DeVries was the coach for Drake before he moved on. But Ben McCollum's another name. I've seen Justin Gainey, a former Wolfpacker. He's an assistant coach at Tennessee. Me personally, I don't know if I'd hire a coach that doesn't have head coach experience, but that's just me. Kenton, any other names you'd like to bring to the table here?
Well, I'll tell you this. One thing about basketball coaching searches, they often take very strange directions. Obviously, I've heard a lot of people saying Rick Pitino. I don't think that y'all understand the amount of money you're going to have to pay Rick Pitino to come to NC State. Not even about how attractive the job is or is not. I'm sure St. John's is paying him a ton of money, and you would have to match that or beat that rather on top of paying Coach Keatts' buyout, which that's a hard bargain to ask. But basketball coaching searches are so different and unique because you don't really hear about assistants in the same way that you do for football. You hear about, oh, this was a Burroughs Award finalist. This guy was a Burroughs Award finalist. You're not really, you don't really get those same things from basketball in terms of assistants who are good. I'll tell you, a lot of names that are being floated are good. I want Will Wade. That's the guy that I want. Hey, he wasn't wrong. He was just early. He was revenue sharing before revenue sharing was cool. Man of the people, Will Wade. I want Will Wade in Raleigh now. Book the flight. Book the damn flight. Get him out of McNeese immediately.
I will say this too about Will Wade. I think his energy and personality would also be a large hit with the Wolfpack fans. He's very energetic. He's very demonstrative. And I think if you're looking to inject a new energy into a program that needs it right now, coming off of what we did last year and trying to build on that, I do think he would be a very interesting fit to get that done. I think
he has the
certainly
natural showmanship. He has a
yes,
natural showmanship that would make people want to give to him, even if it's not quite there yet in
right,
terms of like the winning and all that. You still are like, there's something about this Will guy. I believe it
right.
because he's got that salesman showman type thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's a little bit of a salesman. And in this new era, when you're trying to, conjure up NIL efforts and get the fan base bought in, that's the type of things that can go a really long way. Aside from all the success that he has been having on the court here recently, he's a really good X's and O's coach. I think if you watch McNeese State here the next couple of days, I'll have to look up their schedule so we can all get a good look at him. But he's a very good coach as well. He does a lot with the resources that he has at McNeese State. So I would definitely have to keep an eye on Will Wade here moving forward. Any other names that we do see, I'll be sure to float those out. I had one, I lost it though. But anyway, Will Wade is probably the top name to know. We'll keep our ear to the ground, let you know if we do hear anything. As I mentioned, the women's game actually is about to tip off now. So we'll get you out of here so we can focus on the game. And then we'll see you post-game, hopefully celebrating an ACC title win, another one for Westmore. That would be something to watch. But thank you all for joining us. Again, head coach Kevin Keatts has been relieved of his duties. Ryan Odom, I saw that in the comments. Ryan Odom. I'll talk about it later. Kevin Keatts has been relieved of his duties as the head coach of NC State men's basketball. It's about to be an off season. We thought it was going to be an off season, but now it's going to be an off season, if you know what I'm saying. Thank you all for joining us here, our first Sunday pregame. I am flustered. Pregame live show. We'll see y'all after the women's game. Women's game's at 1, probably around like 3 or 3:30. We'll see y'all then. Thank you for joining us. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.